This is the Dealer Playbook. Here we go. This is episode 83 of the Dealer Playbook podcast, where every week we deliver creative strategies for you, today's automotive professionals. I'm Michael Cirillo, joined now with Robert Wiseman. How's it going?
What's happening, player?
Yeah. Today's episode is going to be really cool because, unless you're a stranger to the car business or perhaps brand spanking new, that's the only two reasons I could think of that you wouldn't know our guest today. We're joined by, the founder of Scott Monty Strategies. He's also the former director of multimedia communications for Ford Motor Company. And like Robert just pointed out, he got the blue check mark on Twitter. So, that definitely means something. We're joined by Scott Monty today. This guy is a wealth of information. And P.S., side note, you're going to fall in love with the guy's voice. I'm just going to throw that out there. Crisp, clear, Dr. Fraser Craney. But, we think maybe those blues are called, but I think, the subject matter today is something that really resonates and that you guys have heard us talk about here on DPB. And, that is building relationships of trust. Scott brings in some really cool thought processes to that whole concept. Robert, you want to lead us into this one?
Well, just great. Again, it's something that kind of like a theme we've been going off lately and we've been talking about is just loving to put together information and put out episodes and have guests that deliver content and information that no matter where you're at in the industry, the business, or what resources you have, things that you can really yourself, without buy-in from anybody else, start to put into action and start to see results. And I think that's super valuable because I think back when I was in the same situation that you listening in might be, and that's the easiest stuff for you to really start kicking in, to start, cranking things up for you in this business.
Yeah, no doubt. So hope you got an empty cup. You're ready to fill it up. Let's dive into session 83 of the Dealer Playbook. Here we go. Okay, we're sitting down now with the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Scott Monty. Thanks so much for joining us on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
It's all overhyped.
the end, the punt, and the spike. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, we're just
reading off the cue cards you sent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We've got them scrolling on the teleprompter here. We're pumped to have you on the show. We've been following you for a while. I know we've read a lot of your stuff. Most recently, we read an article that was featured in Strategy Mob magazine, which we thought was really compelling. The topic today, building relationships of trust and what that looks like. That's something that we believe so deeply in, and we talk about it in past episodes, but have never really dug in deep to say, okay, here's what that looks like. And, part of me is conflicted because I feel like as a human being, if I focus on being a good person, I should kind of, know how to build a relationship of trust. But sometimes I don't think it happens that naturally. And I think you brought up a lot of good points in the article. So turning it over to you, benefits of building relationships of trust, and are there steps that, those listening in could follow to ensure that it happens, let's say, organically?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think, when you look at the trends, and, I've been following, I can't even remember how many years now, I've been following the annual Edelman Trust Barometer. This is a study that the PR firm Edelman has put out for 16 years. And they look to the public to understand where they get their information from and what sources they trust and to what degree. And I think they look at businesses, non-governmental organizations, the government, and the media. And, it wavers from year to year, but time and again, it keeps coming back that people trust people like themselves, first and foremost. And I think that stands to reason. We all know that. You're going to make a major purchase, like a car. Where do you get your information? Yeah, certainly you're going to source some online, but ultimately you talk to your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues, people that you have relationships with, and you put a lot of stock in those recommendations or those stories that people tell you. And over time, we've seen people take that more online. Certainly Amazon is the ultimate model for that. You go and you see, okay, this has a 4-star review out of 5. Why? And you look at the top reviews, and then you look at the lead bottom reviews, and you try and get a sense as to why people ranked it for a certain way. And you either identify with certain people, or you realize they're totally full of crap, whatever it is to you. But you use that in your decision-making process. What's happened, I think, when we've gone to this huge push online over the last 20 years is two things. One, when you look at the advertising model, when you look at what draws attention, we've pretty much used the same model that we've had for, 70 years. The old radio and television and billboard model that became popular in the era of mass media. And when the internet came along in the mid-'90s, we simply took that model and we just dropped it on top of the internet.
Sure.
And I would argue that it was already broken going into that phase, that people were already looking for ways to get around advertising, and they had enough of it and all the like. And then another 10 years goes by, and the world of social comes along. And you took the twice broken model, broken once from its original iteration and broken again during the digital phase, and you dropped it on top of social. So now we're working with a twice broken model, and people are wondering, well, why can't we gain trust? Why can't we gain attention? And it comes down to a misappropriation of resources. When, we're all concerned about generating leads, and we're all concerned about bringing feet in the door, no matter what business we're in. But have we taken the time to really focus on what we need to do to build relationships with our customers and to build trust? Because building trust means you do things consistently and repeatedly over time in a predictable fashion, so that ultimately it leads to loyalty. But all you have to do is have one major misstep, and you're back to square one, and you have to start from scratch. I mean, look what happened with Volkswagen last year, right? I mean, great reputation, great brand, amazing vehicles, and they stepped in it big time, right? And now it's back to square one for them. So if they've been building relationships with people along the way, they'll have a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, right? They'll have customers that'll allow them to have this misstep, but still they've got a lot of making up to do.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said too about, kind of taking this twice broken model. I mean, we are surrounded, just radio and TV alone, we were surrounded by so much advertising, so much talking at us, that we were already conditioned to ignore it by the time the internet came along. And that just perpetuated the amount of talking to people that happened. And then, like you said, with social media. So we're in this situation, I think. Do you feel like, internally, those companies individually are putting out these messages and they feel like, there's movement here, there's opportunity here, not perhaps realizing that it's just getting mixed into this big ball of messaging that gets ignored anyways?
Well, and that's just the thing, at least with television and radio, there was a limit as to how many ads could be put on the air.
Right.
You only have so many hours during the day. With the internet, it's infinite. And we've let that get away from us. And it's, like many things, we've ended up doing it simply because we can, rather than asking ourselves, should we? Mm-hmm. And I think this is where, and I know you guys have talked to a number of guests on this show before that have counseled the same thing, where you have to take the time to put yourself in the consumer's shoes and to understand where they're coming from. When I was at Ford, and we were considering lots of initiatives, and again, we asked ourselves, should we do this? The bottom line was, well, are we providing value to someone? Are we helping them achieve a goal? Are we speeding along a process? Are we making them laugh? Whatever it is, we have to ask whether our contribution is bringing some sort of value to their day. Because let's face it, they're busy. They're picking up the kids. They're going from appointment to appointment. They've got meetings. They're on business trips. They've got to make dinner. Whatever it is, Customers lead busy lives, and we are not the sole focus of their lives. Even when it comes down to them making a purchase decision, there's other things that are going on in their lives. And being aware of that and letting them know that you're in their corner tends to build that trust, right? So if you can show that value, if you can show them that you're thinking of them first rather than yourself, then they're going to trust you more.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, in my, I guess, perception, what you just said is the step before what we're actually seeing. I think a lot of people go into it and say, hey, I want to run this campaign because it's going to help me generate leads. And what you just said is the key to all of that. Well, hold on a second. Before the generation of a lead, the acquisition of a lead, why am I doing this? Like, what's the purpose? Is it helping somebody? And I think, not to step on your toes, but I think that's the whole point. That's how you build a relationship of trust, is by genuinely caring about enriching and enhancing someone's life.
Exactly. And I think the other thing too, and this is interesting because I saw two statistics that were kind of juxtaposed against each other and really told a story. The first statistic was 71% of consumers have said that they have left a brand because of a poor customer experience. 71%, that's almost 3/4 of people leaving a brand because they had enough, right? The other statistic was 63% of marketers say lead generation is the most important thing they can do.
Wow.
Well, I would argue if you're losing customers at 71%, you need new leads, right? But take it around the other way. What are you doing that's driving them away, right? And instead of trying to plug the hole by doing more lead generation, what are we doing to address the customer experience? What are we doing to address the way we treat people? Just like you said, how we make them feel valued, how we treat them, how we show them we care. What are you doing with that to affect your business? Because I guarantee you, one, that's going to stem the tide of lead leakage, if you will. And B, it's going to build in the process of advocacy, right? Getting people that are really satisfied with your business model, with the way they've been treated, and they're going to recommend other people to you. Mm-hmm. Right. So I was tentatively going to title I gave a talk out at Digital Dealer in, I guess it was in October, November out in Vegas. I was tentatively going to title my talk, Putting Your Money Where Your Mouth Isn't, and focusing on the customer experience and customer service.
So now you've turned that into a book?
Working on it.
Oh, there you go.
Working on it.
Oh, because I was just going to hack that title.
I got a book in me somewhere.
I was thinking the same thing. That's why
I just bought the
the
domain right now.
Oh man, I got to get out there. When does this air?
That's awesome. No, that is a really catchy title, and I think it fits perfectly. I've kind of been thinking through that same concept, like help your customers by getting out of their way, or in other words, just give them what they're actually looking for. Be valuable to them.
Well, yeah, because
they're
in market. I'm sorry, Scott.
Yeah, no,
even
exactly.
when they're in market, they're not. They still don't care about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or your product, meaning the person that's selling. It's still about them, and that's what the entitlement of being a customer.
Yeah, exactly, and in this day and age, in particular, with millennials, they know exactly what they want, and they want the world delivered to them the way they want it. Right? They don't want to accept the way that the model has always been.
Sure.
Great case in point. You guys have probably used a Keurig machine in your life, right? Mm-hmm. So the K cups that they give you. That Keurig came out with a 2.0, where you could use this extra large thing and create a whole carafe if you want. The thing is, with that 2.0 model, they changed it so that you were required to use only Keurig licensed K cups.
Oh yeah, you couldn't buy the off brands that were cheaper.
Exactly. And me, I'm a Dunkin' Donuts fan through and through. Now,
because you must be from New England.
I born in Connecticut, raised there, went to school in Boston. Absolutely. Dunkin' Donuts did not do a licensing deal with Green Mountain Coffee, the parent company of Keurig. So I couldn't get my Dunkin' Donuts coffee at home anymore. Well, I found this company called San Francisco Bay Coffee that was giving away for free a little gizmo they called the Freedom Clip. and you snap it underneath your Keurig where it reads the foil lid on the K cup, and it blocks it out, so you can use whatever cup that you want. Right? And they gave these away, and it was done by the founder. It was a family-run company done by the founder, an 84-year-old guy, and he wrote a whole blog post about the rationale and the process and everything. And he goes, "Look, we're going to give you back what Keurig has taken away from you, the freedom of choice." Right? And he said, we've created 10,000 of these, and evidently they were completely overwhelmed. There were 200,000 people that lined up to get this Freedom Clip. They had to engage a third-party distributor and manufacturer to actually handle all of the orders. And now I think it's free with any order, or it's $1.99 if you want to buy it from the San Francisco Bay Coffee Company. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to buy coffee from them for life because they gave me back the freedom of having my coffee the way I wanted it.
Okay.
And
right?
you've got an affiliate link for that. I'm just kidding.
I wish they did, because I've been talking about these guys for the last year. I mean, this is how you build a relationship. This is how you build loyalty, right? Mm-hmm. They gave me something of value, right? They gave me the ability to have an experience the way I want it, right? And I'm out there telling their story because it's just, first of all, it's just a great American story of ingenuity. And,
sure.
I love that an 84-year-old guy came up with it and not like some farmer bro who's, pissing everybody off. This gets to the point that this is not about a digital revolution. This is not about the latest tools and technology. This is about human nature. And if you can understand how humans think and feel and react and what's important to the human psyche, then you can nail this.
So let me ask you this, because I think the next thing that's coming to my mind, this all makes sense. It's common sense, and like you just said, human nature. In your time at Ford, because I know those listening in are going, okay, now, Cirillo talks about value, Wiseman's talking about value. They've had 80 guests talking about value. Now, the legend, has now added his voice to add value. As a dealer, what do I do? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I've got to sell cars to stay in business. So you're in your time in Ford. Like I like the process that you worked through. What would that look like? Because I'm sure Ford's saying, okay, yeah, of course we need to sell cars, but how do we, like, what are some initiatives that, like, what would your typical thought process be about what can we do to sell a car but convey value first? I don't know if that makes sense, but.
No, it does. And I think here's the issue that we came up against when I was at Ford is that we would have these groundbreaking campaigns and online initiatives. Take the Fiesta movement, for example, right? Before the vehicle was available here in the U.S., the company brought over 100 Euro spec vehicles, which ostensibly were going to be the same as part of the Ford manufacturing plan,
sure,
and gave them to 100 individuals, 100 influencers out in the wild here in the U.S., basically turning the brand over to them and letting them say whatever they wanted. And Ford gets this patina of coolness, of, on the cutting edge. Wow, this is a company that really gets it, right? So people were responding to the reputation that Ford was building online. And then if they walked into a dealership and it felt like it was 1978, where it's run down, or, a couple goes in and it's the woman's car and the dealer addresses the male of the couple. It doesn't really speak well of the brand.
Sure.
Right. So consistency of message, consistency of experience is really important. I remember in late 2008, first time I had a chance to meet with Jim Farley, I said, Jim, we got to get Wi-Fi in every dealership. And he goes, that's expensive. I don't know that they're going to go for that. And I'm like, and look where we are now, 2016, right?
Yeah.
It's commonplace, but back then that's what I was advocating, because that's where we saw the market going, right? So whether it's treating someone in a way they'd like to be treated, whether it's giving them an experience such as I don't know, that we all know that the paperwork is one of the most excruciating parts of the whole car buying process. 4 hours to do, all the paperwork, F&I, and all that. How can we reduce that for the customer? How can we make that less painless? And I don't have the answer necessarily, but the equivalent would be, well, what if my dealer met me at my local Starbucks and had a bunch of the paperwork pre-filled out, and we just had to spend an hour together at the coffee shop, and I walked away with my vehicle after that? What if that could be the new car buying process?
Yeah.
Right. We just need to put ourselves in different customer shoes and think about how the experience might be better for a retiree. Maybe the waiting area and the way they can, get their latest periodical or talk to each other or whatever, or get coffee. How do we make that comfortable for them?
You put flowered furniture. You put flower upholstered furniture and a faint smell of shepherd's pie.
There you go. You make them think there's a doctor's appointment.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Put it in the heat of the night.
You know what though? I mean, you know what though? Like
anything with Andy Griffith would do.
There you go.
It's
Matlock.
Yeah, Matlock
Yeah.
and Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote. Yep.
You know what though? That to speak to that, I think my last car buying experience was actually pretty good. They worked through the paperwork backwards, so they got the most important information they needed from me at that time. Took about an hour, and I don't know if it's obviously because of who I am or the relationship I already had with the dealer, but they said, okay, we're going to work through this other stuff. Feel free to take the car home tonight. Tomorrow, come back, finish up, we'll finish this up. You need to sign a few things and away we go. So they actually let me take the car home overnight.
Yeah, they puppy dog. That's called the puppy dog.
Well, of course, but it was an enjoyable experience because I didn't have to sit there with the excitement of the car being scared about the paperwork.
I'll tell you an example. And this was used as a kind of the barometer or as the bar that we wanted to set when I was at Ford. Alan Mullally, who was the CEO, who, by the way, one of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever had the pleasure of meeting or working with.
So before you get into this, did you get to meet Dr. Willie Jolly?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay, because he talks a lot about Steven.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So Alan he's got 5 kids, and he took one of his daughters to the Apple store, two of his daughters to the Apple store to get a laptop. And he walked in there and he said the place was amazing. It was brightly lit. It was staffed with people who were genuinely happy to be there, happy to see me. They were helpful. They got out of my way when I needed it. They jumped in when I needed it. And you know what? I ended up walking out of that store with 2 laptops, having spent almost $6,000. And guess what? I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that
how many car buying experiences do we hear like that? Right? That should be what drives us. Pardon the pun, but that we should make it an enjoyable experience that people want to come back. Right? I've got a Lincoln. And when I was at Ford, I never had to go through the whole dealership experience. It was just the executive garage. But I've got a Lincoln now, and I take it to the local Lincoln dealer, and I love the experience. They give me the option of waiting there or taking a rental for the day if they have to do something more than an oil change or whatever. It's a brightly lit, really high-tech environment. Everybody there is friendly. They come over, they check on me. I mean, I feel like I matter, and to them I do, right? That shouldn't be just exclusive to a luxury brand. That should be how we treat every single customer.
Yep, definitely. And giving them a little more control over the process too. Like, how do you feel about this? What's your opinion on if somebody comes in, especially like you said with the millennials, and they know what they want and they don't want to test drive the car? They're like, listen, I've driven it before, this and that. I know it. This is the one that I want. And that so many people are so stuck on, and I understand the importance of steps through the sale, but it's like, why am I going to go with a disagreement already and try to sell this guy on why he should drive this car when he's straight up tells me, look, bro, I don't want to, I'm ready. Like, let's bang this out.
Yeah, that astounded me. I mean, the fact that, you push people, you pressure people for, doing it a certain way. Why? Well, Waditwa. What? Waditwa. We've always done it that way. Right? That's not a valid reason to keep doing it, right?
Yes.
Everybody's grandmother said to them, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion, right? What are we doing to truly listen to people? Because I guarantee you, by listening more, this feeds back into what we were talking about at the top of the show. It feeds back into trust. And if you're countering someone, if you're pressuring them to do it your way rather than something that they already know they want to do, you're breaking down the trust. You're giving them a reason to keep you at an arm's length rather than embrace you with both hands, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we should be striving towards. And if a customer knows exactly what they want and they're ready to pay, I mean, good God, can it get any clearer than that? It's like, what you really don't want the sale, do you?
Mm-mm. And they're not. They feel like they're going to get more money out of you. Like that's the big argument is like that's like the person comes in, if you go straight into negotiations, well, you're not going to make any money because you haven't built value. But again, like this generation, especially I think of myself, like I go in when I know what I want something, I know what I want, right? I don't go in there saying I want something and then I really don't want it. So,
well, let me ask you this: would you rather have 3 people in a single day walk in off the street and act like that millennial that knows what they want? Or would you rather spend 4 hours with one trying to convince him that you're right and that he needs to buy the car that you want him to buy?
That, and even so, that once you get to that negotiation, if they're gonna, battle you there, they're gonna battle you whether they test drive it or not. So my opinion is like, if I'm gonna take a small deal, I might as well make it quick, right?
Well, it's a no-brainer. I mean, and like you said, it's a matter of understanding that that's how millennials consume and internalize data, right? They're online. They were born with, well, I guess I technically fall into the category, but, we're very accustomed to getting emotion stimulated from digital devices, and so when they're watching videos and when they're consuming the feature set and the imagery, they've already got a good sense of what they like and they don't like. So the no-brainer move is they walk through the door. You should just know how to handle them. Hey, we want to look at the Ford Fiesta. Okay, cool. I'm grabbing the keys. Let's go jump in. Right out of the gates. Oh, no, sorry, sir. What let me just ask you a few questions before we.
Yeah, I know, right? So my friend Scott Stratton, who is an amazing speaker, and I think he's addressed some of the dealer bodies before. He said, when we talk about millennials, what we really mean, because it's an age group of 18 to 35.
Sure.
That's a wide range,
mm-hmm.
right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know too many 18-year-olds that are like 35-year-olds at this point.
Yeah.
But he said, when we talk about millennials, what we mean is people who are younger than us, and we don't like them. and he goes on to explain, he says, we don't like them because they haven't been made to suffer the way we have. Have you ever had to rewind a VHS cassette? Right?
Put it in one of those those dedicated VHS rewinders.
Right,
that
like
look
a rewinder, right?
Yeah.
The one that looks like a car, right? Yeah. So as this moves over into the car buying experience, why should we subject them to the old model, the twice broken model, if we can go back to what we mentioned before, mm-hmm. simply because we've always done it that way, versus changing the process, meeting them at least halfway, if not, the full way, and deliver something of value to them, right? There's no reason not to do that. And I'm reminded of one of my favorite marketing quotes of all time. And this gets back to what I mentioned before about understanding human nature. The quote is, if you wish to persuade me, you must think my thoughts, feel my feelings, and speak my words. Right? Wow. That was said 2,000 years ago by Cicero. Right? And as a classics major, as an undergrad, now this is the only time I've actually been able to make my classics education work for me. But it has reminded me that there is so much wisdom in the humanity that has come before us, and that if we put aside the glitz and glamour of the latest tools and technologies and the way we can do it today, and really understand what drives human beings, then we're going to be better off for it.
Love this conversation. I feel like I could go on for days. Scott, That I don't. Yeah, there's nothing I could ever add to that. That was perfect. Scott, in the spirit of just winding down, thanks so much for being on the show. But how can our listeners get in touch with you, or where can they follow you?
It's been a pleasure, guys. I really appreciate the conversation. If you want to follow me, I am at scottmonty.com. That's where I put out a weekly newsletter with all sorts of business intelligence every week. It's called The Full Monty. If you want to get it, subscribe there. And, of course, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the usual places as well.
Oh, yeah, this guy, you're a power player on the Twitter, man. I see that.
I try. But, part of, as I grow my business here, and I've been in business for about 9 months now, it's split between consulting, which is with brands and agencies. And, again, just helping them grasp a lot of the stuff we've just been talking about. And I do keynote speaking as well, kind of getting this message out to broader groups of people. So happy to engage either way.
Love it. Scott, thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for the time, Scott.
All right, guys.
All right, and there we have it. Session 83 with Mr. Scott Monty. That was a good time, man. Really, a lot of great information. And again, the guy caught me off guard with the voice. Came in there sounding like a professional broadcaster.
Dude, I wanted to do all sorts of vocal enhancements to myself to try and make myself sound so rich. But you know what? Aside from that and commanding the attention, I mean, some really great points. And I loved some of the, the stories that he shared just about, that the coffee company and their whole slogan, their whole thinking outside the box, we are giving you the freedom that Keurig has taken away, with that device and the how it blanked out the barcode scanner and stuff like that. I think, the experience and just thinking inside of my, you're sitting there going, what can I do differently? I mean, think about the experience that you're providing. It's not so technical. It's not about asking for reviews, and it's not about, it's really about just getting out of your customer's way and allowing them that control to get in the car that they want. Because I mean, like we kind of talked about, I mean, people already have a really clear idea of what they want before they even show up to your store. And I like what he says, for Pete's sake, get out of their way and get them into that car as fast as possible.
Well, and he touched on it, and then we'll say again, and as he mentioned, he said that we've had guests in the past that kind of talk about that, and it's something, one of my favorite parts out of a former guest, Mark Tewart's book, is TLC, thinking like a customer. And you know what? It should not be hard for each and every one of us to not think like a customer, because we all are customers, of somewhere, of something. And every day of our lives. And it's all the same. Like buying a car, it's different. It's a bigger thing. You don't do it as often, but it's still the same. It's still the customer and, the merchant engagement. It's all the same. And I think we separate it way too much than I think we should from any other type of purchase and engagement.
Sure. I mean, it should be simple. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. I mean, think about what you have liked or disliked. I think oftentimes we think about how our hands are tied by, oh man, there's regulation this, and I don't know if my leadership would be into this or whatever it might be. But the reality of it is, most often, the great experiences and the experiences that build trust are just a combination of little small things that just make so much sense.
It's the people on the line. Yeah. It's you. It's the salesperson that provides that. It's not the dealership brand that they've got coffee in the freaking break or in the service lounge or magazines or phone chargers or Wi-Fi. That stuff's all great, but I mean, it's not. It's you, the people. They make the difference.
There you go. Thanks for joining us for session 83 of the Dealer Playbook podcast. So glad that you're here. Check out the show notes, www.thedealerplaybook.com/83. We'd love to hear from you. Join us on Facebook, where we have lately actually a really fast growing following, which is so awesome to see. Love that you guys are connecting with us there again on Facebook. Check us out. And until next time, catch you later.